Hey, welcome back to Daily Hope. Yesterday I asked you how your heart is doing. Can I ask you today, how's your city doing? Wherever it is that God has planted you, how's that city doing? One of the things that most encourages me right now is Brownsburg, Indiana. Sounds humble, but that's where Connection Point is headquartered. And God has really allowed this movement of his people to kind of saturate Brownsburg. About 1 in 4 people who live in Brownsburg calls Connection Point their home church. Now, they're not all where we want them to be spiritually, but it's incredibly saturated. Now we're seeing God start to do that in the city next door to us called Avon, Indiana. And God's got little early movements for us started in Carmel and Fishers, Indiana, but we're believing for that same kind of saturation that changes a city. Now, when you hear about the Second Great Awakening, and it's going to reshape American culture to actually lead up to ending slavery will be a result. The end of slavery will be a result of the Second Great Awakening. But guess what? It started in Rochester, New York. It started in a very similar city to what I live in, maybe to what you live in. Not a super glamorous city, Rochester, New York wasn't. And yet that's where God chose to work. And the point is this. When God brings about revival, it just has to start taking over a city and then a region, and then it spreads. And I want you to pray this prayer that we prayed yesterday from Habakkuk 3, verse 2. And I just want to focus in on this part where it says, I stand in awe of your deeds, Lord. Repeat them in our day. In our time, make them known. So Finney, in the early 1800s, would pray this looking back to the 1730s, saying, God, we saw what you did through George Whitefield and Jonathan Edwards and Charles Wesley. Will you do it again? So would you join me today, because God answered that prayer, in praying that same thing? God, we look back at what you've done in our nation 4 times. Would you repeat that in our day? Would you spark up revival? Pray that for the city you live in. Pray that God would use Connection Point to transform central Indiana. Wherever you are, pray that he'll change your city, change your state, that he'll raise up the next generation. Repeat what you've done in the past now. Make your greatness known. And I think within that prayer, the reason God answered that prayer for Charles Finney is that Finney didn't just pray that and then go live for himself. He prayed that and then he said, God, show me what my role is to play. Now, tomorrow, I'm going to show you factually how this Christian revival led to the ending of slavery in the United States. Can't wait to do that. I'll see you tomorrow.